No one comes to Caracas by accident, and if you do end up here, that's already an event. Because this city lives by its own rules. Here the police don't work in the usual sense. Here, you can't just go for a walk on the streets in the evening. Here you're either a local or a target. Caracas is officially considered one of the most dangerous cities in the world, and the statistics are just the tip of the iceberg. The murder rate is over 80 per 100,000 people, and that's only the recorded cases. In reality, no one knows the exact number of those who have died, because many people disappear and no one even looks for them. The city is divided into zones. It's unofficial, but everyone understands it. There are neighborhoods where even the police won't go without special forces. And more often, they just don't go in at all. The gangs are in control. They collect taxes, resolve conflicts, punish, protect, and execute. Not by law, by their own rules. Each neighborhood is like its own separate state. Entry is only possible with permission. That's exactly why journalists or foreigners are forbidden to walk around on their own. You always need an escort because even the slightest mistake can be fatal. Fear isn't something abstract here. It's a normal state of being. People don't carry expensive things, don't look around too actively, and don't argue with armed teenagers. Here, everything depends on perception. If you look suspicious, if you don't have the right connections, if you don't know the neighborhood code, you're in danger. One careless gesture, glance, or extra word, and your life can end in a second. The police will only come to process the corpse, and more often they won't come at all. Venezuela is a country with colossal oil reserves. Theoretically, this should mean wealth. But in reality, it's a hellish mix of poverty, corruption, street crime, and the complete collapse of legal institutions. The city of Caracas has become its epicenter, and the way it's organized from the inside is not just shocking. It shatters any illusions. But there are things that speak of the criminal situation, without words. They hang above the streets like silent warnings, and more on that later. Is this your first time in Venezuela? And you saw sneakers hanging over the street, tied together by their laces and thrown over wires? Don't overlook this detail, because it's not just teenage mischief like in other countries. In Caracas, this is a signaling system, a symbol that a gang operates here. The territory is marked, it has a roof, it has an owner. This kind of marking didn't appear by accident. In areas where there is no government authority, where there is no guarantee of safety, people obey those who have weapons. Sneakers on the wires are a kind of sign. No entry for outsiders. Only here. It's not a sign, but 2 old shoes. And if you're a tourist just walking around with a camera, you don't have to. Someone might approach you. They might simply not let you go back. Residents of such neighborhoods don't get to choose who rules them. This isn't an election. This isn't democracy. A gang comes in, establishes control, and the locals start living by their rules. Protection for a cut, interference is punished. If someone disagrees, they disappear. If an outsider comes in, without an agreement, they risk their life. When journalists or cameramen come to film these neighborhoods, the first thing they do is not take out their cameras. The first thing they do is wait in the car. Because first, you have to make arrangements with the local overseer. Without this, filming is impossible. And even just walking down the street is too much of a luxury. Some neighborhoods in Caracas have become completely closed-off worlds. They have their own courts, their own field commanders, their own laws. Even the police, if they enter at all, do so only at night and only in squads. In all other cases, they negotiate. And so, in the shadow of hanging sneakers, above the road, a parallel reality is formed where only those who know how to stay invisible survive. But what does it mean to be invisible in a city where murder is an everyday affair? In Caracas, no one asks if you've seen death. Here, the question is different. How many times? Because murders happen every day. Gunfire is background noise in some neighborhoods. People get used to it, just like in other countries they get used to car horns or dogs barking. According to statistics, which are now almost never officially published, tens of thousands of people die every year in Venezuela. But the real numbers may be even higher, because many bodies are never counted, never searched for. They simply aren't found. People disappear, they are kidnapped, they are killed for a phone, for a necklace, for saying the wrong word. This is the norm. The victims aren't always criminals. Often, they're just ordinary people. Those who couldn't hand over cash in time. Those who happened to be in the wrong neighborhood at the wrong time. Those who simply decided to object, or looked the wrong way. Here, the criminal could be a teenager, with a gun, and he won't ask who you are. He'll just pull the trigger. There's an unspoken rule in Venezuela. Don't resist. If someone comes up to you and demands money, give it to them, silently. Don't look them in the eye. Don't talk. Otherwise, there's a chance you won't make it to the end of this street. The locals know this. The police rarely solve murders, not because they don't want to, but because they're afraid. Often criminals have more weapons than the police themselves. There have been cases when gangs attacked patrols to seize their rifles. That's exactly why even the military are forbidden to travel alone at night. They're targets. You can be killed for a Kalashnikov. Murder in Caracas isn't an incident, it's part of the city's fabric. And if you survived, it just means you got lucky. Because anyone could be the next target. But even those who survive face something else: poverty, hunger, and absurdity. And now imagine, in a country where blood is shed everywhere, you're also forbidden to sing in the shower. It sounds like a joke, but it's a fact. In Venezuela, during Hugo Chavez's rule, people were actually banned from singing in the shower. And not just singing, water use was officially restricted. A maximum of 3 minutes. 1 minute to soap up, 1 minute for shampoo, and another to rinse everything off. That's it. A country drowning in oil ended up without water. This is just one example of the absurdity. In Caracas, houses, most often self-built from bricks, scrap metal, and rebar, are not connected to the central system. Water comes sporadically, electricity is on a schedule, and gas is available sometimes. People wash themselves in barrels and cook by candlelight. And they sleep next to the stall where they sell fruit during the day. The everyday reality of most Venezuelans is frightening in its normalcy. Rooms without doors replaced by cloth curtains. Kitchens are in the corner of the same room where the bed is. No heating is needed. The temperature can rise to 100 degrees Fahrenheit. But there are holes in the walls, tin roofs, and constant noise. The streets make it feel like you're living not in a house, but out in the open. And despite all this, people live and even smile because the habit of survival is like a second skin. And if you're lucky enough to have gas, electricity, and water all at once, it's a celebration. And if you have a candle to light up your kitchen, it means you haven't lost everything yet. But even if you have all that, it doesn't mean you'll be able to buy groceries. Because in a country with the largest oil reserves in the world, money has become so devalued that it has stopped meaning anything. Imagine going to a store with a stack of cash and not being able to buy even a chicken. Because money is just paper. In Venezuela, inflation reached hundreds of thousands of percent. At some point, it became easier to weigh money than to count it. And this isn't even a joke. When your salary is $10 a month and a roll of toilet paper costs $7, you start to reconsider your life priorities. People started using money as packaging because the paper was more useful. You could trade a stack of bills for bread or napkins. The government carried out denomination, removed zeros, and issued new banknotes. But it didn't help, because prices were rising faster than the bills could be printed. Banks imposed restrictions. It's impossible to withdraw more than $50 a day. Cards don't work everywhere. Currency goes to the black market, and official exchange rates exist only for those close to the authorities. The lines for food are insane. A kilogram of bananas costs 16,000 rubles in our money. French fries at a fast food place cost $30. A shot of whiskey at a bar is $58. All this is for people with an average salary of $10. And yet stores are still open, but the shelves are often empty, or they're filled with green bananas, which are used to make potatoes. Real potatoes? A luxury. People don't buy it by weight, but by the gram, because it's more expensive than meat. But how do you even survive in a city where bread can cost more than your salary, and where the dollar is almost illegal? The answer is in the next chapter. While the dollar exchange rate is being discussed in the capital, in the slums of Caracas, laws operate that have nothing to do with the official system. Here, everything is under the control of 5 major criminal groups. Their influence is everywhere. They are the real power in the city. The first category, 3 collectives. These are motorcycle gangs. Their members move in pairs, are armed, and often act on behalf of the current regime. Formally, they are supporters of the authorities. Unofficially, armed groups controlling areas where the police don't even go during the day. They punish, carry out vigilante justice, and collect taxes from the population. Their motto is order through fear. The second, promise. These are prison leaders who run operations directly from behind bars. They command hundreds of people on the outside. They collect tribute, organize robberies, kidnappings, and extortion. In some regions, they are the ones who allocate jobs, food, and even housing. The authority of promise is higher than that of any official. The third category is the Las Megabandos. These are highly skilled groups with access to military-grade weapons. They operate not only on the streets, but also through schemes, money laundering, document fraud, and hostile takeovers. These are no longer street gangs, but fully fledged mafia structures with international connections. Fourth, paramilitaries. Paramilitary formations operating in border areas, especially with Colombia. They are involved in smuggling, drug trafficking, and kidnapping. They often have political cover. Their fighters are armed with automatic weapons and explosives, and the areas under their control are real combat zones. T category, fighters from the National Liberation Army. They espouse Marxist ideas, advocate for the liberation of the people, and wage their own war against the state. Their base is in the jungle. They are armed and fanatical, and they are completely autonomous. These 5 branches of the criminal world are not just bandits. They are a parallel system of governance. They have their own police, their own courts, their own rules. Their power is not based on elections, but on fear. That is why most residents of Caracas know, if you want to survive, you need to know whose territory you are standing on. And such a territory is most often a barrio, the slums where these rules are born. A barrio is not just a neighborhood. It's an entire universe. Narrow paths, houses piled on top of each other, stairways where only one person can pass at a time. Millions live here, without sewage, without water, without windows. But with the hope that tomorrow there will be at least a little food, barrios began to form back in the mid-20th century. The poorest segments of the population were searching for any land where they could build a roof over their heads. The cheapest plots were in the mountains, on the slopes. That's where neighborhoods of brick and iron began to grow. Without documents, without permits, they simply took the land and built. Today, barrios are already fully fledged neighborhoods. But there is still no infrastructure there. Inside, they have their own routines, their own laws, their own leaders. People live on salaries of $5 to $10. They work at the market, carry sacks, sell food, take on any odd jobs they can find. Wardrobes? No. They keep their things in plastic bags. There is no heating in the house, but they don't need it anyway. It's hot all year round. Instead of doors, there's fabric. Instead of a kitchen, there's just a corner in the room. A whole family can sleep on one bed. Sometimes even neighbors do too. Here, children's dreams aren't about professions, but about survival. Because the only way to get rich here is through crime. And those who don't want to become gangsters remain trapped, with no way out, with no prospects. It's in the barrio that new mafia fighters are born. This is where the overseers are raised. Here, conflicts aren't settled in courts, but on the streets. But there are also those who managed to rise up, who became part of the ruling class. And one of them gave an interview. He doesn't hide his face. He looks straight into the camera. He's wearing a cap, has tattoos on his arms, and a cold stare. He's one of the leaders of the gang, controlling an entire district of Caracas. They simply call him Jefe, the boss. He speaks calmly, without threats or bravado. We do everything. Drugs, car theft, kidnappings, murders. It's business. He has connections with the police. He has protection in the administration and respect in the neighborhood. He's not afraid of the police because he pays them. He's not afraid of rivals because he's armed. And he's not afraid of the future because he knows. He has more of it than the others. According to him, he became a gangster not out of desire but out of necessity. Because there were no other options. There are no jobs, and wages in the industry are miserable. And he has a family, children. And now he gives them what he never had himself. Stability. Yes, a bloody one. Yes, at the cost of others' fear. But with you, there is stability. He understands that he lives in a hellish system. But in this system, he's at the top. People fear him. People respect him. People listen to him. And in a country where the law means nothing, fear is the best way to rule. He's not the only one. There are hundreds like him. Every district has its own leader. Every barrio has its own army. And in this system, there is no place for justice. Only survival. All this is happening in a country that has the largest oil reserves in the world. How did it come to this? It's hard to believe, but Venezuela is #1 in the world in oil reserves, even above Saudi Arabia. Richer than the Emirates, yet it looks like a ruined village. Because the country's wealth turned out to be a curse. In 1999, Hugo Chavez came to power. A charismatic leader who promised the people everything and actually delivered. When oil prices soared, billions of dollars poured into the budget. Chavez started building schools, hospitals, handing out subsidies, and creating aid programs. Poverty was cut in half. But this was only temporary, because the entire system was built on a single resource. As soon as the price of oil dropped, the money disappeared. But the habit of living off the state remained. The new government couldn't keep the economy afloat. A crisis began. Then came hyperinflation. After that, hunger. From Kiev, Katatolat. All this in a country that could have been basking in luxury. Today, oil production keeps decreasing. Factories are destroyed now. The equipment in Bastia is outdated. Foreign companies have left, and domestic factories are barely operating. Just barely. Because technology is needed, investments are needed, and there aren't any. And while oil wealth sinks into the ground, people above are fighting over toilet paper. Literally. When toilet paper becomes a shortage in a country, it's no joke, it's a warning sign. In Venezuela, an ordinary roll can cost up to $7. That's almost an entire month's salary. People use newspapers, packaging, scraps, because there's not even enough money for hygiene. At one point, the authorities seized a pulp factory to try to stop the crisis, but it didn't help. There wasn't enough paper for passports, certificates, or packaging. It even became unprofitable to print money, because the cost of paper exceeded the face value of the bill. Memes appeared about being awarded with toilet paper like a medal, but people weren't in the mood to laugh. Because once again, the government showed that it's impossible to control the economy by decree. When you can't afford to buy food, can't afford to print the passport, can't afford to wipe yourself, that's no longer just a crisis. This is a catastrophe. And in this catastrophe, more and more people are literally living on instinct. Some steal, some turn to the black market, and some eat pigeons. When people say there's nothing to eat in Venezuela, it's not an exaggeration. People have actually started hunting street animals. Pigeons, dogs, cats, anything that moves is fair game there. At the markets, you can see an elderly man butchering a bird right on the sidewalk. It's unlikely anyone will ask, well, where did it come from? Once pigeons were sacrificed according to ancient traditions. Today, they're simply fried because there's no other meat. The refrigerators in the stores are empty, or they're packed with frozen chunks of ham costing $30 to $40 per portion. Who would buy that if the salary is only 10? The butcher shops are still there, but there are no carts left. People carry the meat themselves. They haul half a cow on their shoulders. No sanitary treatment, no packaging. As long as they can get it home, they offer chickens, roosters, pigeons. For pennies? No, everything costs 3 to 4 times more than the market price. Because demand is higher than supply. Meanwhile, there is hunger in the streets. Meanwhile, in supermarkets, if they're open, you can buy drinks with fake labels. All the Coca-Cola is homemade, almost always with a poisonous taste. The real thing costs $2.50 a bottle. That's a quarter of a salary just to have a soda. There are guards between the aisles because everything gets stolen, even the labels, even the tape. And in this economy built on absurdity, the only real currency is the dollar. But even that's not simple. In Venezuela, there's no official way to find out the dollar exchange rate. The government prohibits currency exchange and banks don't deal with foreign cash. Even at a hotel, if you pay in cash, they'll scan your bill and ask you to sign a copy. Because counterfeits are everywhere. People find out the real exchange rate from Instagram stories. Yes, the biggest source of information is anonymous accounts where black market rates are posted every day. One day, a dollar might cost 3,000 bolivars, and the next day 5. It all depends on panic, rumors, and news from the capital. Every store sets its own exchange rate. The owner just decides. Today the dollar is 6. Tomorrow it's 7. The day after tomorrow it's 10. There's no logic to it. It's just the will of the merchant. Don't agree? Move on. But it might be even more expensive elsewhere. If you don't have dollars, you're nobody. But even if you do, finding a place to exchange them is a quest. It's even worse with a card. The ATM gives out $50 a day. People wait in line for the ATM for 3 hours. And even then, there's no guarantee you'll get it. People don't live by prices, but by guesses. Everything is based on rumors. And against this backdrop, some people still manage to find ways to earn a living. How to trade. How to survive. Everyone does it in their own way. Some brew coffee in a thermos. Some drive people around in a beat-up car. Taxi drivers in Caracas. You are like a people of your own. Their cars often have no air conditioning, no brakes, not even windows. But they keep working. Because a car is an asset. Even if the muffler is dragging along the asphalt, the driver will still go. Because every trip is a chance to earn money. It's not just locals sitting in the taxis. There are retirees, former military, and ex-government officials. Anyone at all. Because there are no jobs, but people still need to get around. Some even ride on office chairs fastened to the bed of a pickup truck. Some have cameras inside to record the passengers. The cameras aren't for safety. They're to show that the driver is following the rules. Cars are distributed by the government through socialist programs. But the conditions are simple. You have to transport people for a set fare. Less than 3 cents per ride. Of course, almost no one actually follows this. But officially, yes, this is transportation for the people. All over the city, you see beat-up cars, old buses, and pickups overloaded with people. People jump onto moving vehicles. No doors, no seats. But at least they'll get you where you're going. This is transportation not of comfort, but of desperation. Because most people can't afford their own car or a proper taxi. But even in this chaos, people still have their celebrations. Caracas has its own carnivals. Colorful, noisy, reminiscent of the ones in Brazil. Children put on costumes, paint their faces, and throw candies. It's like Maslenitsa, yes, at the start of Lent. It seems fun, but it always ends with gunfire. The celebration takes place against a backdrop of poverty. Money for candy is rare. So they replace them with pieces of cardboard. They slap you on the back, then throw a bunch of paper balls in your face. Sometimes it's fun, sometimes it's rough. It all depends on the neighborhood. But during these days, it strangely becomes safer. Because even the gangs celebrate. The streets fill with music. People laugh. And although the gunfire doesn't stop, the atmosphere really is festive. It's a rare moment when Caracas smiles. But then, the celebration ends. What remains is trash, the smell of cheap alcohol and news of stabbings or shootouts. Because the fun is temporary, but the poverty is permanent. And even if you forget for a day, the next day it's back again. Empty shelves, lines, counterfeit bills. And only nature still won't let you forget how amazing this land could be. If it weren't for everything else, Venezuela could be a paradise. Here is the highest waterfall on the planet. Angel Falls, almost 3,000 feet of vertical drop. A place you can only reach by river or by air. There's also the fantastic Mount Roraima, a flat summit as if straight out of a dinosaur movie. Real jungles, real wonders. But at night, there are no tourists in Vivi. The hotels are closed. The airports are almost empty. The beaches are bigger, but there's no infrastructure. People change clothes behind the bushes. Cafes? Not working. Tourism? Dead. Even though just 20 years ago, Venezuela was the richest country in South America. It was considered the future of the continent. Today, this country is on the verge of collapse. With crime that controls the capital. With an economy where toilet paper is a luxury item. With a market where the dollar exists only on social media. But at the same time, with pride. With nature that cannot be destroyed. With a culture that is still remembered. With people who, despite everything, keep on living. And that's why Caracas is not just the most dangerous city in the world. It's a city where, beneath the layers of violence, poverty, and hopelessness, there is still hope. But just like everything else here, it is carefully hidden. In Venezuela, a uniform doesn't guarantee safety. On the contrary, it makes you a target. In recent years, it is police officers and soldiers who have become some of the main victims of street gangs. Why? Because they have weapons. And here, that's worth more than money. Military personnel are forbidden from driving around the city at night. There is an official order to patrol only during the day and only with an escort. Bandits specifically hunt those in uniform. They are killed for their assault rifles, for their uniforms, to humiliate the system. A single Kalashnikov on the black market is worth a month's salary for an officer, and it's easy to sell. Police officers themselves admit there are neighborhoods they don't enter. Not out of fear, but out of common sense. Because even if you go in there, you might not come back out. No one will cover you there. Not the state, not your superiors, not your colleagues. That's exactly why there are so many vigilante acts in Caracas. So many private showdowns. Because the official system is powerless. Or it simply turns a blind eye. Many officers have arrangements with local gangs in exchange for peace and quiet. The law enforcement system hasn't collapsed. It has simply ceased to exist. Filming from the air in Venezuela is almost a crime. After the attempted assassination of President Nicolas Maduro using a drone, the authorities launched a real hunt for anyone flying quadcopters. Now, if you have a drone in your luggage, that's already grounds for interrogation. Local operators film at their own risk, without permission, without registration. That's a direct path to prison. Especially if you're not a citizen of the country. Journalists, tourists, bloggers, all of them are at risk. At airports, there are inspections, confiscations, and detentions. Just having a drone in your luggage can land you in a holding cell for several days. Even if you haven't filmed anything, this isn't just about fighting espionage. It's a symptom of fear. The government is afraid that someone will see the truth, that someone will show destroyed neighborhoods, lines, closed stores, and that's why the control is getting stricter. Every drone is seen as a potential weapon, and this shows just how vulnerable the regime is when even a camera in the sky becomes a threat. Venezuela isn't just Caracas and the barrios, it's also paradise islands. White sand, turquoise water, palm trees, the tropics, resorts that could compete with the Maldives or the Bahamas. But there's one catch. Only the wealthy can get there. Tourism in Venezuela is almost dead. Most hotels are abandoned, and the ones that are open are for insiders. Prices are sky high. It's hard to get there. Booking is almost impossible. Even locals often don't know these places exist. These are ghost resorts. A paradise for officials, crime bosses, and retired military. Where everything works. Where they serve real rum. Where there's toilet paper in every room. But ordinary Venezuelans aren't allowed in. It's a visible reminder. The country has resources. They're just distributed in such a way that most people will never see them.